Prologue. Subaru Natsuki lay helpless on the ground, his body burning and blood flowing freely, staining the earth beneath him. Trembling, he touched the deep wound in his stomach, realizing it was tearing him apart. He knew he was dying. A black boot stepped into the blood, likely belonging to his attacker. But Subaru couldn't focus on them. His only thought was for her safety. He heard her voice briefly, soft and comforting, before she collapsed beside him. Her hand fell lifelessly, and he grasped it, feeling a faint response. Summoning his last bit of strength, Subaru promised himself he would save her. With that vow, his life came to an end. Chapter 1. Subaru Natsuki found himself in an unfamiliar world, with no usable money and no clear idea of what to do. His wallet, though full, was worthless since the currency system here was entirely different. Flicking a rare 10-yen coin, he sighed deeply, realizing how out of place he looked. With short black hair, a gray tracksuit, and average features, he was unlike the vibrant and strangely dressed inhabitants, some sporting colorful hair and animal-like traits. Their curious stares only reinforced the truth. He had been summoned to another world. A typical high school truant from Japan, Subaru mused over how his life had spiraled further into chaos. Despite pinching himself and smacking his head, he couldn't wake from what seemed like a bizarre dream. Settling against a wall, he assessed his situation. The medieval-like world had no modern technology, and trade was done using gold, silver, and copper coins. Though he could communicate easily, his belongings, a nearly dead phone, snacks, a tracksuit, and worn sneakers, left him ill-prepared for survival. Subaru's knowledge of anime and games helped him accept the reality of being summoned, but it didn't solve his immediate struggles. With no resources, no Excalibur, and no summoner, he felt abandoned. Still, the sight of giant lizards pulling carts and people with animal ears confirmed the strange new world he was in. Lost in thought, Subaru stood to rejoin the main road, but was abruptly pulled back into the alley by a large, imposing man. Subaru Natsuki's journey in the strange new world took a dangerous turn when three men cornered him in an alley, blocking his escape. Their mocking demand for his belongings left Subaru uneasy, but he clung to the hope that he might possess hidden powers, as often seen in stories of otherworldly summoning. Fueled by this belief, he launched an attack, landing a punch and a kick that briefly incapacitated two of the men. Confidence surged within him until he saw the third man draw a knife. Realizing the danger, Subaru immediately dropped to his knees, begging for mercy. His earlier bravado vanished as the men recovered, their injuries minor. They retaliated, beating Subaru mercilessly. He curled into a ball, overwhelmed by pain and the fear of losing his life. Just as the knife-wielding man prepared to strike, a girl with striking blonde hair and determined red eyes raced into the alley. Subaru's fading hope reignited, expecting her to intervene. But to his despair, she hurriedly apologized, claimed she was too busy, and vanished over a wall. Subaru's desperate situation worsened as silence fell over the alley. The men still pinning him down showed no signs of mercy. Subaru's pleas for leniency were met with anger, and the knife in their hands made his impending death feel all too real. Resignation began to set in, filling him with emptiness at the thought of dying without achieving anything. Just as the knife drew closer, a commanding voice broke through the tension. A silver-haired girl appeared at the alley's entrance, her violet eyes shining with intelligence and her presence radiating nobility. She demanded the men stop their wrongdoing and return what they had stolen. Though her tone was calm, an unexplainable pressure filled the air, unsettling the men. The thugs, confused and defensive, denied stealing anything from her and pointed to Subaru as a scapegoat. The girl, after a brief exchange, seemed ready to leave but turned back, raising her hand. Shimmering lights danced around her palm, and a clump of ice shot out, striking the men and sending them sprawling. Subaru, witnessing magic for the first time, was both awed and underwhelmed by its simplicity. Two of the men recovered, angrier than before, and armed themselves for a fight. The girl, unfazed, revealed her trump card, A small, talking cat perched on her hand. The cat's light-hearted yet ominous threats sent the men fleeing in fear, leaving Subaru alone with the girl and her companion. As Subaru tried to thank her, the girl's cautious demeanor stopped him. Her piercing gaze and cold tone made it clear she wasn't ready to trust him. Subaru, captivated by her beauty, blushed and looked away, only fueling her suspicion. Subaru's faint consciousness stirred as the silver-haired girl and her cat discussed their next move. Despite his weak state, Subaru managed to assure them he was fine and urged them to go after the thief. Attempting to stand, he collapsed instantly, hitting the ground hard and losing consciousness again. Though the girl initially showed little empathy, Subaru's last thought before drifting into darkness was her flustered beauty, even in anger. When Subaru woke, sunlight streamed across his face. Expecting a soft lap to have been his pillow, he discovered instead that it was Puck, the cat, in an oversized form. Despite his disappointment, Subaru couldn't help but admire how unexpectedly comfortable the arrangement was. The girl stood nearby, her guarded demeanor reminding Subaru that her kindness was purely pragmatic. She revealed she had healed his injuries and intimidated his attackers, but demanded answers about the thief and her stolen badge. Subaru confessed once again that he knew nothing. Accepting his ignorance, the girl hastily prepared to leave, warning Subaru not to find himself in trouble again. Puck teased that she was not honest about her feelings, but she disappeared into the streets without looking back. The silver-haired girl, despite her urgency to retrieve her stolen badge, had paused to save Subaru and even healed his injuries after he passed out. While she insisted her actions were for her own benefit, her stubborn refusal to acknowledge her kindness painted a contradictory picture that Subaru couldn't ignore. He was determined to repay her generosity, even if she didn't expect it. Rising to his feet with renewed determination, Subaru called out to the girl, offering his help in finding the thief. Though surprised, she initially hesitated, explaining she had nothing to give in return and doubting his usefulness. Yet Subaru's resolve was unwavering, declaring he would assist her as part of his one good deed a day philosophy. The girl remained skeptical, but the cat, Puck, nudged her toward accepting his offer, emphasizing the practicality of working together in such a vast city. As their search began, complications quickly arose. Neither Subaru nor the girl knew the area well, wasting precious time as they wandered aimlessly. Subaru's inability to read the local writing added to their struggles, leaving him feeling out of place in this new world. Meanwhile, the girl, focused and unshaken, closed her eyes and began communicating with lesser spirits. Puck explained these lesser beings were incomplete spirits developing toward full self-awareness and power. Subaru watched in awe as faint glowing lights surrounded the girl, a sight that emphasized the otherworldly magic he had yet to fully grasp. Subaru marveled at the glowing spirits surrounding the silver-haired girl, interrupting the serene moment with his excitement. His sudden outburst startled the lesser spirits, causing them to scatter and vanish. The girl, visibly upset, struggled to re-establish contact, but her efforts failed. Subaru apologized profusely, realizing the gravity of his mistake when she revealed she had sought their help to locate the thief. Though her frustration was evident, the girl's honesty in expressing her disappointment resonated with Subaru. Determined not to be a burden, he resolved to cling to this relationship, the only connection he had in this foreign world. Puck suggested they exchange introductions, lightening the mood as Subaru animatedly shared his name, and the cat humorously followed suit. The girl, curious about Subaru's origins, examined his features and deduced he must belong to an affluent family. Her confidence faltered when Subaru clarified he was from an ordinary background, leading to mutual embarrassment. As the girl tried to mask her concerns about the search, Subaru recognized her altruism and felt a renewed sense of responsibility. Her perseverance and kindness ignited his determination to prove his worth and repay her for saving his life. As Subaru mulled over clues from his earlier encounter with the thief, he began piecing together a plan. He hypothesized that the thief might have connections in a crime-ridden area, possibly a slum, where stolen goods could be exchanged. His analysis impressed Satella, who agreed with his logic, and together they returned to the bustling main road to gather information. Before they could begin questioning passersby, Subaru realized Satella had never introduced herself properly. After some hesitation, she revealed her name, Satella. The name seemed to create an emotional distance between her and Subaru, but he chose not to press further, noting Puck's faint disapproval of the situation. As they reached the crowded street, Satella's attention shifted to a lost young girl, moments away from tears. True to her kind nature, Satella couldn't ignore the child's distress, even though they were pressed for time. Despite Subaru's reminder of their urgent task, Satella crossed the street to help. Her gentle tone failed to comfort the fearful girl, whose anxiety only deepened. Subaru stepped in, attempting to ease the tension with a playful trick, using his notched 10-yen coin. Through a simple sleight of hand, he made the coin disappear and reappear, delighting the child and bringing a rare moment of relief to both Satella and the girl. His unorthodox approach left Satella equally baffled. Subaru bowed dramatically, placing the 10-yen coin in the little girl's hand as a gift. Her anxious expression softened as she clutched the coin tightly and nodded with gratitude. Satella, watching from the side, poked Subaru and asked, with curiosity rather than suspicion, how he had performed the trick. Subaru promised to explain later, but turned his attention back to the girl, who was now calmer and eager to answer his questions. Learning the girl had lost her mother, Subaru reassured her, promising to help find her parent. He reached out his hand, and after brief hesitation, she held onto it. Satella, impressed by Subaru's ease with the child, teased him about his unusual talent, though Subaru swiftly denied having any profession. When the girl extended her other hand towards Satella, the silver-haired girl hesitated before gently taking it, offering the same heartfelt reassurance that they would reunite her with her mother. With the girl now holding their hands, Subaru and Satella walked together along the bustling street. Subaru joked about how they might look like a young couple with a child, earning a confused yet dry retort from Satella. Their playful banter seemed to lift the mood, and the girl, sandwiched between their warmth, let a shy smile grace her face. Fortunately, it didn't take long for Subaru and Satella to reunite the little girl with her mother. The heartfelt gratitude from the mother left Subaru and Satella modestly brushing off the thanks as they waved goodbye to the child, who beamed and waved back multiple times. Subaru, catching Satella's radiant expression during the moment, couldn't resist teasing her about her habit of turning delays into justifiable actions. Satella's reasoning, however, was simple and sincere. She believed helping the girl put them in a better mindset to continue their search, something she would have regretted if left undone. Subaru had to admit her approach left no room for regret, and it earned his respect. Their conversation shifted as Satella questioned Subaru's change of heart about helping the girl. Subaru playfully claimed he wanted to show off his magic trick, but also reaffirmed his commitment to assisting her out of gratitude and his self-imposed good deeds philosophy. Satella in turn remarked that Subaru's personality would lead him to lose everything someday, a sentiment Subaru humorously flipped back on her, much to her confusion. The light-hearted tone shifted when Satella revealed she was a half-elf, a fact that initially left Subaru speechless. Contrary to her expectations, Subaru casually complimented her beauty, likening it to the traditional elegance of elves in fantasy. Satella's unexpected reaction was to retreat and collect herself, visibly flustered. Her companion Puck playfully punched Subaru, claiming an inexplicable frustration. When Satella returned, she brushed off the earlier exchange with a cryptic insult and insisted they continue their search. Subaru's irritation faded as he saw her growing comfort and familiarity. Yet, as they stood amid the sprawling capital's busy streets, the daunting challenge of finding the thief in such a massive city loomed ever larger in their minds. Overwhelmed by the labyrinthine streets of the capital, Subaru and Satella decided they needed a plan. Subaru suggested they revisit the scene of the theft, hoping someone might recall what happened. Satella led him to the exact street corner where she had been robbed, a place that Subaru recognized as the spot where he had been summoned earlier. Coincidentally, the location brought them face to face with a fruit shop run by a gruff, scar-faced man whom Subaru had encountered previously. Trying to win his favor, Subaru introduced Satella, only to learn she didn't have any money to spend either. The shopkeeper dismissed them until a familiar voice intervened. It was the mother and child they had reunited earlier. As it turned out, the woman was the shopkeeper's wife. Humbled by their story, the shopkeeper apologized for his earlier behavior and acknowledged their kindness toward his daughter. The little girl, eager to show her gratitude, presented Satella with a red flower ornament. Satella accepted it graciously, pinning it to her cloak, her smile dazzling enough to leave Subaru momentarily captivated. Moved by their act of kindness, the shopkeeper softened and offered to assist them. Triumphant, Satella looked to Subaru with a victorious smile, declaring that her earlier good deed had indeed paid off. Subaru and Satella reached the entrance of the slums, a dim and uninviting area where stolen goods were rumored to be exchanged. The stark contrast to the lively main road was unsettling, with its silence and oppressive atmosphere. Despite Subaru's suggestion to involve the guards, Satella refused firmly, revealing there were reasons she couldn't explain. Realizing her resolve, Subaru lightened the mood, joking about their team tactics, even as Puck reminded them time was running out. Determined to press on, Satella warned Subaru to be cautious, offering him the chance to stay behind. Subaru, however, insisted on accompanying her, though he admitted he preferred not to take the lead. As they ventured deeper into the slums, the dreary surroundings were offset by a surprising revelation. Subaru's disheveled appearance actually endeared him to the locals, who pitied him. Satella, however, was met with distrust. Her fine clothes and striking beauty made her stand out in stark contrast to the impoverished residents, who dismissed her attempts to seek help. Despite Subaru's suggestion to remove her cloak, Satella refused, clutching it protectively. Subaru couldn't help but sense there was more to her reluctance than she let on, though he chose not to push the matter. As Satella fondly touched the red flower ornament on her cloak, Subaru couldn't help but feel more determined to support her. With Puck's departure imminent, Satella prepared to rely on her own abilities, reminding Subaru she could still use magic. Subaru, though comically self-deprecating, promised to watch her back as she led the way. Together they continued asking around in the slums, where Subaru's persistence finally paid off. A local identified the thief as Felt, describing her as a fast, blonde girl who likely took the stolen badge to a loot cellar. This cellar, run by a trusted master, served as a hub for tagging and selling stolen goods. However, the cellar's master was known for refusing to return items without negotiation, blaming the original owner for losing them in the first place. Subaru managed to learn the seller's location, but a troubling realization followed. They had no money to buy the badge back. Satella revealed that the badge contained a jewel, making it valuable and raising the risk of an exorbitant price. Approaching the imposing loot cellar, Subaru and Satella discussed strategies to retrieve the stolen badge. Subaru insisted on handling the negotiations, recognizing that Satella's honesty might complicate the situation. Despite her initial surprise, Satella agreed, showing a rare moment of trust in Subaru. Her earnest wish for his success, though understated, fueled his resolve. Subaru prepared a backup plan, reluctant to use his one valuable possession, his cell phone, as barter. Peering into the dark, foreboding cellar, he reassured Satella and accepted the small crystals she offered for light. Her concerned expression softened as he addressed her by name for the first time, prompting a brief but genuine smile. Buoyed by her reaction, Subaru entered the cellar alone. Subaru cautiously entered the dark loot cellar, guided by the faint light of the crystals Satella had given him. The room resembled an old inn, repurposed to store stolen goods, with items tagged and cluttered across the counter and shelves. As Subaru ventured deeper, he noticed a sticky substance on the floor, which led him to a horrifying discovery. A mutilated corpse of an old man, his throat slashed and arm severed. Before Subaru could process the scene, a cold, mocking voice pierced the silence. He was struck by an unseen force, sending him crashing into the wall and losing his light source. Overwhelmed by searing pain, Subaru realized he had suffered a fatal wound. His body nearly split in two. As his life ebbed away, he saw a black boot step into the pool of his blood, belonging to the one who had attacked him. In his final moments, Subaru's thoughts turned to Satella, wishing for her safety. Her voice, like ringing bells, reached him briefly before she collapsed beside him, her hand weakly grasping his. With his last ounce of strength, Subaru vowed to save her, but his life slipped away, leaving his promise unfulfilled. Chapter 2. A Struggle Too Late. Subaru found himself back on the bustling main road, the sun high in the sky, as if the events of the loot cellar had never happened. Confused and disoriented, he checked his body for injuries but found no trace of the fatal wound he had suffered. Everything, from his tracksuit to his belongings, was intact, as though he had been reset to the moment he first arrived in this world. Haunted by the memory of Satella's fate, Subaru resolved to return to the loot cellar, hoping to uncover answers. However, his path was blocked by the same three thugs he had encountered earlier. Their mocking demands pushed Subaru past his breaking point. Fueled by frustration and a newfound determination, he fought back with surprising ferocity, knocking out the knife-wielding thug and swiftly taking down the other two. Subaru, fueled by determination, fought off the remaining thug with a mix of brute strength and improvised wrestling moves, leaving all three men incapacitated. Victorious but aware of the urgency, he hurried toward the loot cellar, navigating the maze-like slums with difficulty. His inability to read the signs and reliance on memory delayed him, but he eventually arrived at the cellar's entrance, his nerves frayed by the flashbacks of the horrors he had witnessed there. Knocking on the door, Subaru's desperation grew as silence greeted him. Just as he was about to force his way in, the door swung open, revealing a towering, bald old man named Ram. The man's imposing presence and aggressive questioning left Subaru momentarily speechless. He managed to explain his purpose and was reluctantly allowed inside. The loot cellar appeared untouched by the tragedy Subaru remembered, its shelves filled with stolen goods. Ram, pouring himself a drink, wasted no time in asking Subaru's intentions. Subaru admitted he was there for stolen items, but hinted at another reason for his visit. Ram's curiosity was piqued, setting the stage for a tense negotiation. Subaru hesitated but went ahead with his first puzzling question to Ram, asking if the old man had died recently. While Ram brushed it off with a laugh, joking about his age, Subaru couldn't shake the eerie memory of the corpse he'd seen. Everything about Ram was familiar, leaving Subaru grappling with the possibility that either his own memories were unreliable or something unexplainable was happening. Subaru then asked if Ram had seen a silver-haired girl recently. Ram denied the encounter, but Subaru's evident concern shifted the conversation. Ram pushed Subaru to let go of his frustrations with a drink, and while initially resistant, Subaru relented. Overwhelmed by the intensity of the liquor, Subaru's reaction brought laughter from Ram and a moment of camaraderie. Finally, Subaru revealed his true purpose, retrieving Satella's stolen badge. Though Ram claimed not to have it, he revealed a thief named Felt had arranged to bring in something valuable later, reigniting Subaru's hopes. But Ram warned Subaru that buying the badge back would require funds, and Subaru boldly countered with his plan to barter using his cell phone. Demonstrating its magical ability to capture and freeze moments of time, Subaru's display fascinated Ram, who identified the phone as a media, a rare magical tool. Though Ram admitted he couldn't price it accurately, he acknowledged its high value. The heartfelt conversation with Ram, clarifying his determination to exchange his rare media cell phone for Satella's stolen badge. Even though it was a significant loss, Subaru emphasized his need to repay Satella's kindness, acknowledging his inability to live with unresolved debts. Amused yet impressed by Subaru's resolve, Ram called him a fool but respected his sincerity. As they waited for Felt's arrival, Subaru and Ram passed the time chatting, with Subaru reluctantly sharing his precious corn chips, a decision he quickly regretted. When a knock finally came at the door near sunset, Ram initiated a coded exchange of secret passwords to confirm the visitor's identity. The door opened to reveal Felt, a feisty blonde girl with rabbit-like red eyes and a mischievous air. Upon noticing Subaru, she immediately grew suspicious, questioning Ram's intentions. Ram reassured her, explaining that Subaru's business aligned with hers and hinted at a mutually beneficial offer. Meanwhile, Subaru, sensing the badge's presence near Felt's chest, prepared himself to negotiate for Satella's treasure. Subaru, despite his nerves, managed to steer the conversation back to the negotiation. Felt, initially wary and dismissive, eventually agreed to sit down and hear him out. Ram, ever the mediator, provided milk for both of them, though Felt's complaints about its taste added a touch of levity to the tense atmosphere. The banter between Subaru, Felt, and Ram revealed a surprising camaraderie, with Ram acting as a gruff but caring figure in Felt's life. Subaru, however, kept his focus on the badge, cutting through the distractions to address the matter directly. Felt, after some hesitation, reached into her pocket and placed the jeweled badge on the table. Subaru finally saw the badge he had been searching for, the intricate design of the dragon and the gleaming jewel at its center. The sight fueled his determination as Felt pushed him to show what he had to offer in return. Confidently, Subaru played his trump card, showcasing the cell phone's camera function. The glowing light and captured images amazed both Ram and Felt, who acknowledged its rarity and potential value as a media. Despite Ram's confirmation that the cell phone far surpassed the badge's worth, Felt wasn't ready to settle. She revealed that she had stolen the badge for someone offering 10 blessed gold coins, a price already much higher than the badge's usual value. Felt's cunning nature came to the forefront as she explained her intent to use Subaru's offer as leverage, pushing the other buyer to counter with an even greater deal. Her sharp smile underscored her confidence, leaving Subaru on edge as she continued to raise the stakes. Subaru's insistence on sitting in during Felt's negotiations was reluctantly accepted, as she revealed the meeting was to take place right here, in the cellar. Confident that Ram's intimidating presence would deter any threats, she leaned on the old man's strength as a silent enforcer. While waiting for the mysterious client, Subaru grappled with his frustration toward Felt's audacity and her apparent indifference to their past encounter. Meanwhile, the tension eased with light banter between Ram and Felt, their dynamic resembling that of a gruff but affectionate guardian in his sharp-tongued charge. Ram's return with a spiked club served as a stark reminder of the dangers lurking in this world, though Subaru took the opportunity to offer his heartfelt thanks for Ram's support. Their exchange was interrupted by a knock on the door, timed perfectly with Felt's prediction. As Felt went to answer, Ram readied himself, the looming presence of his weapon casting a heavy air over the room. Subaru's anticipation heightened, knowing the confrontation ahead could make or break his mission to reclaim Satella's badge. Subaru found himself in a tense standoff as Felt introduced Elsa, a strikingly beautiful and enigmatic woman, as the other bidder for the badge. Elsa's calm demeanor and subtle glances unnerved Subaru, but he steeled himself for the negotiation. Felt, ever the opportunist, laid out the rules. The badge would go to the highest bidder, regardless of loyalty or sentiment. Elsa, confident in her offer of 10 blessed gold coins, turned her attention to Subaru, curious about his counteroffer. Subaru, knowing he couldn't compete with money, played his trump card once more. He demonstrated the cell phone's camera, capturing Elsa's image with a flash of light. Subaru's bold display of his media caught Elsa's attention. She studied the device, watching her image appear on the screen. The rarity and value of the item clearly intrigued her, and she nodded thoughtfully, understanding the weight of Subaru's offer. Without hesitation, Elsa reached into her coat pocket and produced a small leather bag, placing it on the table with a metallic clatter that hinted at its contents. A substantial counteroffer prepared to secure the badge. Subaru's triumph in securing the badge was short-lived, as Elsa's chilling demeanor shifted. Her probing question about Subaru's intentions with the badge led him to reveal his plan to return it to its rightful owner, a mistake that immediately triggered Elsa's murderous intent. The atmosphere turned deadly as Elsa drew a kukri blade, its brutal design clashing with her elegant appearance. Felt's quick reflexes saved Subaru from Elsa's initial strike, pulling him out of harm's way. The tension escalated as Subaru, now on the ground, faced Elsa's cold and calculating gaze. Her weapon gleamed ominously, a stark reminder of the danger she posed. Ram, wielding his spiked club with all the strength of a giant, launched a ferocious assault on Elsa. Despite his raw power, Elsa's unnerving precision and agility allowed her to evade his attacks with an almost supernatural grace. The confined space amplified the tension, every swing of Ram's club shaking the room and scattering stolen goods. Subaru's instincts screamed that something was wrong, and his fears were realized when Elsa turned the tide of the battle. In a devastating moment, Ram's arm was severed mid-swing, the club still gripped tightly in his hand as it flew across the room. Even with his grievous injury, Ram charged forward in a final act of defiance, only to be met with Elsa's cold efficiency. With a shard of glass, she ended the fight, slitting Ram's throat and leaving him lifeless on the ground. Elsa's eerie composure remained unbroken as she bowed to Ram's fallen body, her chilling words and actions underscoring her lethal nature. Turning her attention to Subaru and felt, her blood-stained kukri poised for another strike. The room was heavy with the weight of impending doom. Subaru, paralyzed by fear and grief, could only watch as the nightmare unfolded. Subaru's world, shattered as Felt, driven by courage and desperation, faced Elsa head-on. Her acrobatic movements and wind-like agility briefly gave her an edge, but Elsa's deadly precision proved insurmountable. Felt's life was cut short in a brutal instant, her body collapsing in a pool of blood. Subaru, paralyzed by fear and grief, could only watch as the nightmare unfolded. Elsa's cold indifference to the lives she had taken pushed Subaru into a rage. Fueled by anger and guilt, he forced himself to stand, his trembling limbs betraying his resolve. Charging at Elsa with raw emotion, Subaru's attack was swiftly countered. Elsa's calculated movements left him reeling, her elbow and kick delivering a devastating blow. The cellar, once a place of negotiation, had become a stage for tragedy, with Subaru struggling to find the strength to fight back against an unstoppable force. Subaru crashed into a porcelain shelf, his nose and front teeth shattered. Elsa's kick broke his ribs and left him gasping. Despite the pain, Subaru stood up, fueled by determination. Elsa struck him again, breaking his left shoulder and knocking out his remaining front teeth. Subaru's anger seeped away, replaced by nausea and a ringing in his ears. As Elsa prepared to finish him off, Subaru felt a strange sense of déjà vu. He saw the loot cellar, the giant corpse, and the reddish blade, and a thought flashed through his mind. Elsa vanished, only to reappear and strike Subaru's abdomen. He dodged the initial attack, but couldn't avoid the second, which spilled his blood and guts onto the floor. As Subaru fell, Elsa walked towards him, her smile gleaming in the dim light. "It's my specialty," she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. Elsa gazed at Subaru's bloody innards with ecstasy, admiring their color. Subaru's consciousness began to fade from the unbearable pain. He weakly touched Elsa's foot with shaking fingertips, struggling to speak. Elsa knelt beside him, her eyes filled with bliss, and said, "Slowly you'll lose heat and grow cold." Her voice vibrated through Subaru's eardrums, torturing him. As Subaru's blood loss increased, his senses faded. He couldn't see, hear, or smell anything. All he felt was his body growing colder, consumed by fear. In his final moments, Subaru's mind racing with questions. When will I die? What is life? What is death? Why is dying so frightening? As death closed in, Subaru's mind rejected it. His vision whited out, and with his last thought, he realized, "Ah, I'm dead." Subaru Natsuki's life flickered out. Chapter 3. Ending and Beginning. Subaru, disoriented and lost in thought, finds himself in front of a fruit vendor offering him a red, apple-like fruit. Snapped back to reality by the vendor's concern, Subaru collapses from exhaustion and is later revived by a splash of water. Haunted by vivid, traumatic memories of violence and despair, he struggles with his emotions. While sitting in turmoil, Subaru spots a silver-haired girl, Satella, who seems indifferent to him as she walks by. Determined, he chases after her, calling her name. Though she initially ignores him, she eventually stops, and Subaru approaches, grappling to express his regret and desperation for not listening to her earlier. Despite Satella's cold and emotionless stare, Subaru found solace in knowing she was unharmed and expressed relief at seeing her again. However, Satella reacted with anger, pulling away and berating Subaru for calling her by the name of the Witch of Jealousy, a taboo figure. Her sharp rebuke stunned Subaru, shattering his confidence as he realized the weight of his mistake. The crowd around them froze, captivated by their tense exchange. Satella demanded an explanation, accusing Subaru of insensitivity in using such a cursed name. Confused and overwhelmed, Subaru struggled to process her reaction while the crowd silently agreed with her. Disgusted and impatient, Satella dismissed Subaru and walked away, leaving him in turmoil. Subaru stood silently as Satella walked away, her hair flowing behind her. He tried to call out to her, but hesitated, fearing another mistake. Suddenly, a swift figure darted through the crowd, stealing Satella's dragon-adorned badge. The silver-haired girl reacted in shock and accused Subaru of working with the thief. Desperate to clear up the misunderstanding, Subaru chased them into an alley but found himself at a dead end. As confusion and unresolved memories overwhelmed him, 3 familiar thugs appeared, blocking his path. Frustrated and out of patience, Subaru confronted them, but they responded with taunts, showing no fear despite their previous defeats. Subaru, trying to avoid conflict, offered to hand over his belongings to the thugs. As he prepared to comply, he noticed an unsettling anomaly. A bag of snacks he was certain had been consumed earlier was inexplicably intact. Distracted by this realization, Subaru pushed past one of the thugs, determined to investigate further. However, his escape was thwarted when he stumbled, and one of the thugs stabbed him in the back. Overwhelmed by pain and unable to cry out, Subaru collapsed as the thugs argued over their actions, leaving him in agony and on the brink of death. Subaru's body began to fail him as his consciousness flickered and his vision darkened. Clinging to a desperate thought, he tried to focus on his surroundings, using his remaining senses to gather fragments of conversation from the thugs. Overwhelmed by pain and fading awareness, Subaru's mind unraveled, and as his body succumbed, he heard the faint sound of something being pulled away before losing his life for the 3rd time. Chapter 4. 4th time's the charm. Subaru awoke to bright sunlight after regaining consciousness. A familiar voice, the fruit shop owner, offered him an apple, breaking the street's lively noise. The shopkeeper's scarred face might have appeared sinister, but Subaru knew his kindness, though the man seemed unaware of Subaru's past interactions. Questioning the date, Subaru realized Haya's confusion about the world's calendar. The patient shopkeeper grew irritated as Subaru lingered, eventually yelling at him to leave when Subaru admitted he had no money. Scrambling away, Subaru decided he wouldn't return for a while. Subaru realized that his belongings and body were intact, with no wounds or scars from his previous deaths. He concluded that he was somehow resetting to a starting point whenever he died, a phenomenon he decided to call return by death. Comparing it to time travel or an autosave in a game, he reflected on the absurdity of dying 3 times in half a day. Analyzing past events, Subaru deduced that Elsa was the culprit behind the earlier tragedies, with negotiations gone wrong leading to bloodshed. Despite the danger, Subaru felt compelled to retrieve Satella's stolen badge as a way of repaying her kindness. Subaru realized that his actions in earlier loops, including his duty to repay Satella's kindness, were reset with each death, leaving her with no memory of him. He decided to abandon the idea of helping her and instead focus on avoiding Elsa's threat. However, he reflected on Satella's selflessness and the inevitable patterns in each loop, Satella's badge being stolen, Elsa's violence, and the deaths of others. Unable to ignore their impending deaths, Subaru resolved to take action, even acknowledging Satella's use of a fake name, determined to win her trust and make a difference. Subaru realized his encounters with Satella were driven by coincidence, while his repeated confrontations with the 3 thugs seemed unavoidable. While wandering into an alley, he once again faced Dumb, Dumber, and Dumbest blocking his path. Tired of their antics and recalling their fear of guards, during his last moments in the previous loop, Subaru loudly called for help. His shouts rattled the thugs as he hoped to leverage their fear of the police-like force in this world to escape safely. Subaru's attempt to call for help failed to rally the crowd, leaving him cornered by Dumb, Dumber, and Dumbest. who brandished their weapons. Preparing to make a risky escape, Subaru was interrupted by a commanding voice. A striking young man with flaming red hair and a knight's sword appeared, stepping between Subaru and the thugs. His presence intimidated the trio, who identified him as Reinhard, the master swordsman. Despite his modest dismissal of the title, Reinhard's unwavering gaze silenced the confrontation. The thugs, intimidated by Reinhard's presence, hesitated before fleeing without a fight. The tension dissipated, leaving Subaru in awe of Reinhard's composure and gallantry. Subaru expressed his gratitude, marveling at Reinhard's honorable demeanor and extraordinary abilities. The two casually conversed, with Reinhard revealing that he was a guard off duty and dismissing the grand title of Master Swordsman as a heavy burden tied to his family's expectations. When asked about his origins, Subaru vaguely claimed to come from a Far Eastern land, but his answer piqued Reinhard's curiosity, who referenced an unfamiliar term, Grand Cascade. Subaru, puzzled, tilted his head, signaling his lack of understanding. Subaru, unfamiliar with the geography of the world, dismissed mention of the Grand Cascade and focused instead on his search for Natsuki. Reinhard offered his help but admitted he hadn't seen anyone matching her description. Subaru declined assistance and returned to the main street, planning his next move. While Subaru scouted near the fruit shop, he recalled another unresolved issue. The shop owner's daughter had yet to be saved in this loop. Subaru questioned the shopkeeper about any recent commotions and learned about icicle-like magic blasts that left holes in a nearby wall. Concluding that Natsuki might have been involved and could be more agitated than usual, Subaru realized he was too late to intercept the events this time, leaving him anxious about what might come next. Subaru decided to track down Felt before she reached the loot cellar, hoping to exchange his cell phone for the stolen badge. Avoiding the loot cellar due to past encounters, Subaru ventured into the slums, using a strategy to appear destitute and gain sympathy from its inhabitants. His plan worked, and he pinpointed Felt's living place, though uncertain if she would return there. While navigating the slums, Subaru unexpectedly encountered Elsa, the woman who had killed him twice before. Her unsettling presence and ability to sense his fear left Subaru struggling to maintain composure as Elsa toyed with his emotions, enjoying his discomfort. Subaru endured Elsa's unsettling presence as she taunted him before vanishing into the shadows. Shaken but determined, he continued to Felt's shack, a tiny and dilapidated space that reflected her harsh life. Subaru's relief at finding her turned into a tense exchange as Felt, guarded and sharp-tongued, revealed her stolen badge. Subaru directly offered to buy it, emphasizing its value and his urgency, while Felt, intrigued but cautious, agreed to hear him out if the deal seemed profitable. Felt perked up at Subaru's offer, but hesitated, questioning the true value of the item he claimed was worth 20 blessed gold coins. Subaru introduced his cell phone, demonstrating its unique ability to capture and display clear images. Though impressed, Felt demanded confirmation of its worth through a third party. She suggested taking it to Rom at the loot cellar for appraisal, much to Subaru's dismay. Realizing he couldn't avoid the loot cellar, Subaru reluctantly agreed, but emphasized the need to settle matters quickly and leave immediately. Pushing through Felt complaints, Subaru led the way, determined to avoid any unnecessary casualties and stay ahead of the looming danger posed by Elsa. Subaru and Felt navigated the grimy, narrow alleys of the slums toward the loot cellar. Noticing their roundabout route, Subaru called out Felt for stalling, correctly guessing her intentions despite bluffing his confidence. His plea for directness earned her reluctant trust, and she agreed to lead him straight to their destination. As they walked, Felt revealed her disdain for the slums and its resigned inhabitants. Her ambition to escape the alleyway life drove her actions, and Subaru pieced together her deeper motivations. Her hesitation about going alone hinted at someone she couldn't leave behind, reinforcing Subaru's belief in the bond she shared with Rom. Feeling a new sense of connection to Felt, Subaru playfully tousled her hair as they pressed onward, determined to make the best of their fourth attempt. Subaru's determination grew as he resolved to change the fates of everyone he cared about. Arriving at the loot cellar with Felt, He confronted Rom, the burly old man guarding the entrance, and convinced him to let them in. Inside, Subaru presented his cell phone for appraisal, explaining its unique ability to capture and store moments in time. Rom carefully examined the device and marveled at its capabilities, admitting it was unlike anything he'd ever seen. He confidently valued the cell phone at over 20 blessed gold coins, solidifying its worth in the negotiation with Felt. Subaru presented his cell phone to finalize the deal with Felt, ensuring its worth was guaranteed by Rom's appraisal. Although tempted, Felt hesitated, questioning Subaru's true intentions for wanting the badge. Her sharp probing made Subaru uneasy, and his attempts to deflect only deepened her suspicions. Pushed to the edge, Subaru revealed his honest motive, returning the badge to its rightful owner. His sincerity surprised Felt, but her doubt lingered, even as Rom vouched for Subaru's honesty. Despite this, Felt criticized Subaru's seemingly foolish resolve, arguing that if he truly wanted justice, it would have involved the guards, a notion Subaru dismissed to honor Natsutella's wishes. Subaru's determination to return the badge remained unwavering, but his negotiations with Felt broke down as her doubts persisted. Rom's empathetic tone hinted at his understanding of Felt's internal struggle, yet even his calm presence couldn't sway her decision. The situation turned tense when a sudden knock at the loot cellar door startled the group. Subaru, sensing the worst, yelled out a warning, fearing the early arrival of despair. To his surprise, the door opened to reveal the silver-haired girl, Natsutella, whose entrance illuminated the cellar as she calmly dismissed any notions of violence. Her demeanor, sour yet controlled. Chapter 5. Starting life in another world. Natsutella's sudden arrival at the loot cellar heightened the tension, as her cold demand for the badge unsettled everyone. Felt, cornered and frustrated, lashed out at Subaru, accusing him of conspiring with Natsutella. Subaru realized his actions had inadvertently allowed Natsutella to find the loot cellar faster, fueling Felt's suspicions. Rom, cautious and awed, identified Natsutella as a half-elf, a revelation that further agitated Felt. Misunderstandings deepened as Felt's mistrust of Subaru grew, while Natsutella, puzzled by the accusations, denied any collaboration. Subaru, shaken but resolute, urged Felt to return the badge to Natsutella, hoping to diffuse the escalating tension. However, before the situation could settle, Elsa launched a surprise attack on Natsutella. Thanks to Subaru's quick warning and Puck's timely intervention, Natsutella narrowly escaped harm, shielded by a magical barrier. Elsa, unfazed, revealed her murderous intent, declaring her plan to kill everyone and retrieve the badge from the aftermath. Felt, furious and hurt by Elsa's betrayal, confronted her, but Elsa's cruel words struck a nerve, leaving Felt visibly shaken. Subaru, overwhelmed by anger, shouted at Elsa, surprising everyone in the room, including himself. Subaru's anger exploded as he chastised Elsa for her cruelty and disregard for life, channeling his frustration into a loud tirade. His outburst distracted Elsa just long enough for Puck to launch a powerful counterattack with a barrage of icicles. Although initially caught off guard, Elsa evaded the assault, revealing her magically reinforced coat that had protected her from the initial strike. The battle intensified as Elsa demonstrated her superhuman agility, dodging and countering attacks with precision, while Natsutella and Puck worked in tandem to defend and retaliate. Rom, observing the fight, acknowledged the duo's impressive coordination, but worried about Puck's limited energy. Despite Puck's calm demeanor and playful remarks, the looming threat of his eventual withdrawal created a tense uncertainty about the battle's outcome. Puck's clever strategy immobilized Elsa by freezing her foot to the floor, leading to a powerful attack that froze the loot cellar entirely. However, Elsa evaded the attack with astonishing determination, slicing off the sole of her foot and sealing the wound with ice. Puck, depleted of mana, bid farewell, leaving Natsutella to fight Elsa alone. With Puck gone, Natsutella's magic weakened, and the balance of the battle shifted. Elsa's overwhelming skill and relentless attacks began to push Natsutella into an increasingly defensive position. Meanwhile, Rom and Felt discussed their next move, torn between aiding the fight or escaping. Subaru, struggling with his physical and emotional limitations, could only watch helplessly as the intensity of the confrontation reached its peak. Subaru's determination to protect Felt and change the tide of the battle led him to act boldly. Rom joined the fight, swinging his club with force, but Elsa's incredible agility allowed her to evade and counter his attacks, leaving Rom unconscious. Felt's quick thinking saved Rom's life, but Elsa turned her attention to her, closing in with deadly intent. Subaru, despite his fear, tackled Felt to safety, repaying her for saving him in a previous loop. He urged her to escape while he distracted Elsa, grabbing Rom's club to launch a surprise attack. Though Elsa deflected his strike, Subaru's quick thinking allowed Felt to flee, narrowly avoiding Elsa's thrown knife thanks to Subaru's improvised defense. However, Elsa retaliated with a powerful kick, sending Subaru flying and cutting short his moment of triumph. Subaru, battered and bleeding, fought desperately to distract Elsa and protect Natsatella. Despite his fear, he swung Rom's club with all his might, but Elsa's agility and skill allowed her to evade and counter his attacks effortlessly. Subaru's attempts to stall her were met with increasing injuries, as Elsa's strikes left him covered in cuts. As the battle intensified, Subaru's reckless kick was caught by Elsa, who prepared to deliver a fatal blow. With his life hanging by a thread, Subaru braced for the worst, only to be interrupted by a commanding voice declaring, "That's enough!" A flame erupted in the loot cellar, radiating an overwhelming presence that halted Elsa and the chaos in its tracks. From amidst the fire, a hero with blazing red hair and unwavering resolve emerged, commanding attention and declaring the end of the desperate battle. Meanwhile, Felt fled the cellar, haunted by the sounds of the ongoing fight and conflicted emotions over Subaru's sacrifice. Despite her instincts to escape, Felt's heart stirred with gratitude and concern for Subaru, driving her toward the main street in search of help. With desperation mounting, she called out for aid as the weight of her feelings in the perilous situation overwhelmed her. Reinhardt's timely arrival brought a wave of relief to Subaru and the others. Calm and composed, Reinhardt faced Elsa, instantly recognizing her as the notorious Bowel Hunter. Despite her menacing demeanor and reputation, Reinhardt remained unfazed, exuding an aura of confidence that hinted at his unparalleled abilities. After deflecting Elsa's deadly initial strike with a single devastating kick that shook the entire loot cellar, Reinhardt demonstrated his extraordinary strength and composure. He declined to draw his legendary sword, citing its unique restriction, and instead chose a discarded two-handed blade from the room. As Elsa darted into motion, seeking to test him, Reinhardt readied himself with a fluid stance. Reinhardt's unparalleled skill was on full display as he effortlessly disabled Elsa's weapon, turning even a neglected sword into a tool of mastery. Subaru took the opportunity to secure Rom and ensure he was treated by Natsatella, who used her spirit magic to heal his wounds, albeit at the cost of reducing Reinhardt's access to mana. As Elsa revealed even more hidden weapons, the battle escalated, with both combatants demonstrating almost superhuman prowess. Subaru, relaying Natsatella's signal that her healing was complete, called out to Reinhardt to unleash his full power. The room shifted dramatically as Reinhardt seemingly tapped into something far greater, causing the air and temperature to warp. Subaru, supporting an exhausted Natsatella, could only watch in awe and confusion as the clash reached a new unimaginable level. Reinhardt's climactic strike proved overwhelming, unleashing a force so immense that it obliterated the loot cellar and left no trace of Elsa behind. His unparalleled skill demonstrated the legendary reputation of the master swordsman lineage, leaving Subaru in awe of the sheer scale of Reinhardt's power. As the chaos subsided, the survivors regrouped. Subaru, still incredulous about the events, shared a moment of relief with Natsatella and thanked Reinhardt for his timely intervention. Meanwhile, Felt, who had sought Reinhardt's help, timidly observed from the shadows. Despite the destruction, the group's interactions carried an undertone of humor and camaraderie, celebrating the fact that they had all emerged alive thanks to their combined efforts. Reinhardt approached Felt, and Subaru watched, feeling no envy. Instead, he thought about the difference between someone who had it and someone who didn't. Suddenly, Reinhardt turned and yelled, "Subaru!" A black shadow emerged from the rubble, and Subaru saw Elsa, her black hair trailing behind her, blood dripping from her body. Elsa kicked off the ground, accelerating towards Subaru with a bent blade. Her murderous eyes were filled with a pitch-black intent, sending chills down Subaru's spine. Reinhard wouldn't make it in time, and Subaru knew he had to stop Elsa. Subaru recalled his past experiences, the fear and pain of dying twice. He steeled himself, determined to protect the girl. As Elsa struck, Subaru guarded his stomach with the club, feeling the force of the collision sweep him off his feet. Subaru vomited blood, his vision spinning, and he struck the wall, unable to catch himself. Elsa threw her knife at Reinhard, drawing his attention, and made her escape, leaping from roof to roof. Reinhard ran to the silver-haired girl, asking if she was all right. She replied, concerned about Subaru, who was collapsed against the wall. Reinhard rushed to Subaru's side and the girl followed, asking if he was okay. Subaru stood up, bruised and battered, and smiled wryly. "It's no big deal. If there was ever a time to act before thinking, that was it," Reinhard apologized, taking responsibility for letting his guard down. Subaru interrupted, smiling, and said, "Don't say it. You're going to steal my thunder." He turned to the silver-haired girl, who stood beside him. Subaru closed his eyes, thinking about everything that had happened. With a flourish, Subaru pointed to the heavens and declared, "My name is Subaru Natsuki. I know there's a ton of things you want to say and ask, but before all that, let me confirm one thing." The girl looked surprised, and Subaru asked, "I totally just saved your life, didn't I?" The girl replied, "Oh, okay." Subaru emphasized, "I'm the person who saved your life, your rescuer. Now you are the heroine I rescued. Don't you think I should get some kind of reward?" The girl nodded. "I understand. Only if it's something I'm able to do, though." Subaru grinned. "As long as you understand. Now I only have one request of you." He paused for dramatic effect and said, "I want you to tell me your name." The girl's eyes widened in shock, and a moment of silence fell between them. Subaru's gaze remained steady, waiting for her response. Natsatella's face lit up with a genuine smile, her white cheeks blushing and her silver hair swaying behind her. She giggled, covering her mouth, and Subaru's heart skipped a beat. Her smile was infectious, and Subaru couldn't help but feel happy. "Amelia," she said, laughing, her voice barely above a whisper. Subaru's breath caught in his throat as he heard her name. Amelia straightened herself, put a finger to her lips, and smiled teasingly. "My name is Amelia. Just Amelia. Thank you, Subaru. Thank you for saving me," Amelia said, holding out her hand. Subaru took it hesitantly, feeling her warm, slender fingers and wrist. Her hand was alive, with blood running through it. Subaru wanted to say the same to her, "Thank you for saving me." She had saved him first, and now, after 3 deaths and immense pain, he had finally repaid her. His reward was her name and a beautiful smile. "Ah," Subaru smiled, gripping Amelia's hand. "Man, that wasn't worth it at all," he said, his voice filled with emotion, his eyes locked on Amelia's. Reinhard broke the silence, expressing his surprise that Subaru was all right. Subaru pointed to the club on the ground, explaining that he had used it to guard himself against Elsa's final attack. Reinhard picked up the club, only to find that it had been cut in 2. Subaru laughed, making a joke about avoiding a bad end 4. However, his laughter was short-lived, as he pulled up his tracksuit to reveal a red line running across his abdomen. Reinhard's expression turned uncomfortable, and Subaru knew something was wrong. A searing pain shot through him, and his stomach opened along the cut, spilling blood everywhere. Amelia's panicked voice echoed beside him, and Subaru realized that this might be the end again. As his vision shifted sideways, Subaru saw Reinhard's panicked face and Amelia's distressed expression. He thought to himself that Amelia looked cute even when panicking, and that this fantasy world was a strange place. Before he could think further, the pain and shock swept his consciousness away. Epilogue. The moon is watching. Reinhard watched as Amelia tended to Subaru, using a faint blue light to heal his wounds. Once she finished, Reinhard approached her, knelt down, and bowed his head in apology. "I have caused you a great deal of stress due to my shortcomings," Reinhard said, offering his sword as a symbol of his sincerity. "I am prepared to take whatever punishment you deem necessary." However, Amelia simply waved her finger, looking annoyed. "I never understand why you all are like that," she said. "You saved us from danger, and everyone made it out alive. Yet here you are trying to take responsibility for our pain." Amelia pointed to Subaru, who was now sleeping soundly. "That one over there is more honest. He saved me and then demanded a reward even if it wasn't much." Reinhard smiled, remembering Subaru's pose and request for Amelia's name. Amelia smiled too, and Reinhard stood up, feeling a sense of relief. As they talked, Amelia asked Reinhard how he had come to be there. Reinhard explained that he had met Subaru in an alley and had followed him to the loot cellar. Amelia's expression turned serious, and she asked Reinhard not to interfere further. Reinhard agreed, sensing that there was more to the situation than he knew. As they prepared to part ways, Amelia asked Reinhard about his relationship with Subaru. Amelia replied that she had just met Subaru, and Reinhard raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "But earlier he said he was looking for you," Reinhard said. "He said he had something to give you. And then there's the fact that he put his life on the line to protect you." Reinhard trailed off, not wanting to diminish Subaru's bravery. Amelia and Reinhard finished their conversation, and Reinhard offered to send knights to escort Amelia home. Amelia declined, saying she would take Subaru with her to learn more about him. Reinhard nodded and turned his attention to the aftermath of the battle. He looked at the destroyed loot cellar, frustrated that he couldn't control his power. Amelia asked Reinhard what he planned to do next, and he explained that they would declare the area off-limits and distribute wanted posters for Elsa, the Bowel Hunter. Amelia then walked over to Felt, who was still hugging Rom. Amelia asked Felt if Rom was her family, and Felt replied that Rom was like a grandfather figure to her. Amelia smiled weakly and said she would forgive Felt for stealing from her, but only for Rom's sake. Felt looked relieved and promised to return what she had stolen. As Felt handed Amelia the stolen item, Amelia stuck out her hand, and Felt placed the item in it. Amelia seemed to understand that Felt's circumstances drove her to steal, and she didn't press the issue further. Reinhard watched the exchange, knowing that Felt's situation was complex and that justice wasn't always clear-cut. Reinhard's eyes narrowed as he stared at Felt, his grip on her hand tightening. Amelia and Felt looked at him in surprise, sensing something was amiss. Reinhard's voice shook as he muttered, "I don't believe it." Amelia responded, her eyes trembling, but Reinhard cut her off, his tone forceful. He stared intently at Felt, demanding to know her name, surname, and age. Felt, regaining her composure, replied that she was an orphan with no surname and estimated her age to be around 15. Reinhard's grip on Felt's hand remained firm as he turned to Amelia and declared that he could no longer fulfill her request. He announced that he would take Felt with him, citing a greater crime than theft. Amelia furrowed her brow, confused, but Reinhard didn't explain further. Instead, he rendered Felt unconscious, prompting Amelia to comment on Reinhard's unknightly behavior. Reinhard handed Amelia her badge, adorned with the state symbol of the dragon-friend kingdom of Lugunica. As Amelia took the badge, the red jewel shone brightly, delighted to be back in its owner's hands. With Felt in his arms, Reinhard bowed to Amelia, asking her to take care of Subaru. As he brushed Felt's blonde hair away from her forehead, he couldn't help but notice her innocent and charming appearance. Reinhard looked up at the full moon, feeling a sense of unease. He muttered to himself, "This may be the last time I can look up at the moon and feel at ease." The moon, shining with a bluish-white light, seemed to be the only one to hear his words.